OBM, we got to get into Fable. Again, what happened yesterday with Tina Amini and Craig Duncan, who of course is been promoted to the head of Xbox Game Studios. A lot of people kind of were broadside by that, but that was announced midway through 2024. So I knew about it. You knew about it. A lot of people knew about it, but it was done, in a way where they didn't make a big deal over it. And this is one of the first times we got a chance to see and watch him being interviewed by Tina Amini, who is one of the best additions to Xbox and their marketing in years. I mean, every time she has touched the show, you can tell that it's her and her team producing, and it's been rock solid. And yesterday was no different. I know, and again, we're going to get into some of the conversation regarding the delay, some of the conversation of why that delay actually happened. But overall, look, Playground Games is a developer that I think anyone that even mentions them could walk away with confidence, right? Now, we've been seeing for years now little snippets of gameplay for Fable, but yesterday we got a lot of gameplay. Now, there are some people trying to refute that, which I think is just ridiculous because that was gameplay, not in-game engine. Let's get your thoughts on what happened with the delay, but I want to get your thoughts first on what you actually saw.
Yeah, I mean, well, what we actually saw was real pretty, and obviously at this point, we're not going to get a whole lot in terms of the game design or anything like that. Although I think we can probably make some assumptions, especially since not only has that studio the way that they really always give you something to do in their games, and that's kind of I think one of their one of the things that they do really well is always figuring out how to keep people engaged in the loop, right? But I think part of what's going to make this thing stand out is going to be the exploration aspect, and the way it looks is going to play a lot into that. I go back to like when Peter Monalou, when he first started the development for Fable, which was called Project Eagle back in the day. And I don't know if anybody remembers that. I had the original Xbox magazine. I think it was the third issue with Project Eagle, and it had your main character on the front of it. And one of the things that he talked about in that was, a lot of the RPGs at the time were, which I liked, all those other RPGs. But one of the things that he wanted to do differently was to really diversify the color palette and make it really interesting, make the world extremely interesting, so that when you're moving through it, you actually want to see what's around the next corner. Now, obviously, he never delivered on a lot of his promises. I'm still waiting to step on an acorn and have a tree sprout up years later in the game. But that's what you saw there in some of those clips was, to me, capturing some of the spirit of what this game was about initially as an RPG, and that is really to have something that feels really majestic and colorful and interesting, and it definitely has its own style and I guess identity, and I think that from a visual standpoint, at least to me, it really captures that. Like from a modern age, if you're looking for taking what it used to be in Fable 1 and 2 specifically, and you're trying to bring that into modern visualizations, I think they're doing a really good job. Now, I am excited to see, the thing we don't know anything about from watching those videos is really the loop too much. They show you throwing some magic and doing a little bit of combat, but one of the things that I think we now are learning with their studios is that there is a lot more focus on dynamic gameplay loops. Yes. So I'm actually expecting that in this, even though they've said nothing about it. They've not even given us any real hints. But one of the things that I heard about from a friend that know somebody at the company is, one of the things that Microsoft kind of they did pivot a few years back with their studios. I think initially they were trying to go, bigger, bolder, all this stuff, and then they really kind of changed the focus to like finding the fun. And if anybody remembers, that was kind of like the whole core of the original Halo. It's like let's figure out how to make this thing. Then it was 30 seconds of fun, but really the thing they've really focused on is like it's not about it's not always about just like how this thing shows, it's how this thing plays, and making sure that the loops are engaging and they feel dynamic, and giving player agency where it is. There is some games that are exceptions to that, like your Hellblades and your South of Midnights, which I think are more art house style, where the story and the surroundings are what really carries those. But I think on a lot of their bigger things, we saw it with Indiana Jones. I know Call of Duty was already in development beforehand, but even that was, a little bit more dynamic in terms of how we played that compared to previous ones. And we've seen it now with Avowed. One of the things that's standing out to me going through that, as somebody who beat Outer Worlds and that deal, and at least one of the DLCs, was that how many different ways there is to kind of go through the game, and how your encounter, your experience may be much different than somebody else's. And so those are the things that I am looking forward to. If they can bring all that focus on sandbox and game dynamism to something that looks like that, and keep the exploration, make that interesting and dense, I think they could have something really, really special. So that's, again, a lot of hypothesis right now, a lot of assumptions, nothing we can prove. But that's where when I was looking at that, that's one of the things that was going through my mind.
Fable, I mean, again, it's super early. It's hard to equate exactly what we saw regarding the size of a particular map.
Right.
But if you go back to older Fables, they did suggest that they're going to use what the past was and just make it better. At least that's what it seemed like to me.
And that would be music to my ears, because again, where I'm at, and maybe this is just part of my age, is I don't need a game to get wider. I think that the dense, having it be more interesting moment to moment, have it be denser, have more things to do in smaller spaces, have more choices, more variance in the ways you play through it. That is a really interesting to me. And again, like going through Avowed, you start thinking about, well, what if they bring some of this sort of the variance in just your action? What if they were able to bring that over to Fable? And that was initially what they were trying to do, right? And also one of the core pieces, one of the core aspects of the original was that choice between light and darkness. So when they're saying that, Boom, I really hope they go through with that aspect, because I think those choices is what really gets you engaged with what people are saying and what's actually happening, because you're starting to feel like you impact your surroundings a lot more.
It's very interesting. And again, I hate to keep doing the, one-to-ones with Avowed versus Fable, because we know what Avowed is. We kind of know what Fable is going to be, but there's a lot of context that's absent. So it's hard. But the one thing I will say, you mentioned Consequence. Now, Consequence played a massive part of the original Fables, even based on how your character looked and was seen by other characters, NPCs in the in the world. You do get a lot of that of Avowed, and a lot of people, listen, folks, I'm going to tell you this right now: you redline this game because you're trying to win a point or just be done with it. Don't do that, because some of your decisions that you made on the first 3 hours of the game are going to, in fact, come back to you on the ass end of the game. I'm telling you, it really, it's typical of Obsidian. But getting back to Playground Games, listen, this is a company that we know that has only been known as a racing developer, right? And it's amazing what they've delivered so far. I do want to get into the delay, but we'll come back around to that. Asante, I want to get your thoughts. We haven't had a chance to talk about what was done yesterday between Tina Amini and Craig Duncan. Your thoughts on what you saw regarding the visuals? That, I mean, it was a feast for the eyes, at least for me. I want to get your thoughts.
No, I completely agree. I've actually, as you guys have been chatting, I have multiple windows on my PC, so I've been watching it and scrubbing through the footage and literally watching all of the pre-alpha footage that they've been showing off while you guys have been chatting. And whoever says that this is not actual gameplay needs to have their eyes checked. It's absolutely gameplay. You could even see some of the degradation in quality a little bit because it's gameplay, right? Even though let's be absolutely clear, even as it's gameplay, it's still very high quality. You can definitely see that it's 100% someone moving the controller. It just so happens that there's no HUD there. But yeah, this is really, really exciting to me. I'm not sure most folks know. A huge Fable fan. I've played all three of them. I actually played the version that nobody else got to play. I played the isometric one, the three versus one. I was part of the beta program.
Me too. I played that as well. It was very
literally
very
the day they canceled that thing. I was playing it when I heard they were canceling it, and it was live being played while it was being canceled. It looked beautiful. This looks better, like by far, right? That and so the last attempt at Fable, it looked like they went very regal and the word fables, right? You're talking about people in very highbrow looking clothing and all that. Now it looks like they're going absolutely real, but still maturing the franchise and the story a little bit. So as with what OBM was extrapolating, I can go similarly in that vein. If them us extrapolating what they've done to the visuals is any indication, and of course they allowed you to kick a chicken, so hey, it is what it is. If they've matured that visual element to a place where it still reminds you of Fable, but it's far more mature and has a far more realistic tinge to it, I imagine everything you guys are describing now is also fair game, as in what your actions do to the world, what your actions do to yourself, how it all manifests in that way, right? So it is what it is. Like I'm very, very, very excited to see how all of that manifests, because it clearly looks like the people who took on the challenge of picking up the mantle know very well what makes the original stuff great, what made the original stuff great, why people insisted on wanting to have this franchise back. What are the minimum requirements? What we've seen from it so far has been pretty bold, honestly, because some people could easily start criticizing it because the design elements and the visual design is a far removed from what people are used to in the Fable world, right? Yes, it's true that it was a 360 game, but even then, back in 360 world, there were far more realistic looking games than what Fable was doing. Fable was purposely being cartoony at that time, right? Very, very cartoony, puppet like characters until you grew up. And even then, you had very caricature like features. So this is very much a departure from that. And it looks really awesome. Like, I have to say, I'm super excited to see them thread this needle. I want to see them land this plane. I want to see them, be able to prove that, hey, they made great car games, but that's not all they can do. And it looks like by and large, we're heading in that direction. So yeah, man, I'm super excited for it.
Yeah, and I think that I was going to say, like, because you brought up something that I really wasn't thinking about, but yeah, they do make car games, and this is a far this does seem like far removed from that. But don't forget that when they started up this team, like, they really went out and brought in different new people. They basically were hiring for a new team. This is a studio that has shown great leadership over its history, and and I would think, because when they jumped in with Forza Horizon, they hit the ground running with that thing. Until now it's just on autopilot. But this is a studio, I think a lot of times when it comes to any sort of team, the leadership and just understanding who you need to bring in to complete the task, and also the fact that they have IDOS kind of helping them work on things. IDOS has a history with Deus Ex and things like that. That's a
Tomb Raider.
sandboxy type of game. Yeah, so they have they have a lot of help, that a lot of like institutional knowledge. So it's not like you just have a bunch of guys that were just doing card games and like suddenly like, how do we do this? Like, you bring in the experts in those genres, and you've seen that across all their studios. I think it's been sort of under the radar, but a lot of them have brought in some top end talent, that have a lot of experience in the industry to lead some of these newer projects. So just kind of call that out.
No, I mean, first of all, great points of view. A lot of people don't realize exactly the talent that they poached. They found people on the Sony side, right? They poached from people that made The Last of Us, people that made God of War, people that made Horizon Zero Dawn. They picked up a couple of people that helped with the last Metal Gear Solid 5. So they were going out, getting the talent they needed. And folks, I want you to take a time machine. Walk with me on this, folks. You remember when I first started the Xbox Factor podcast, I was working with the Welsh Gamer, who actually comes out every now and again. He was at, any of the big shows, you can expect him to show up. And there, of course, there's been a lot of people that have joined me since. And one of the things that we specifically were asking for all the way back when, I want to say maybe 5-6 years ago, we said what we wanted was this game to look like The Witcher and to still have its sensibilities for its British humor. We wanted some adult theme conversation and actions, and it looks like our wish actually has been delivered. Again, it's a small
one better.
Please.
I would say if you look at it graphically, it looks more like The Witcher 4 than any of the other Witchers. So
indeed, sir. Yes,
it really does. It looks like it's like super realistic Witcher, not like any other Witchers before it.
I mean, that's a fantastic point. And that's going to be another one that's coming out. I don't know if it's going to come out for this generation or next, because, obviously they take their time. They like to cook, CD Projekt Red. But they did also, to make mention of getting, poaching developers or development houses, they got quite a few people from CD Projekt Red to join Playground Games, and that are now working on this new iteration of Fable, which looks to be, look, folks, maybe you're going to call me a bot for saying this. I already think, just based on what we saw, it's hard to deny that's going to be a Game of the Year contender. Again, things have to work out. But that's pre-alpha footage. You understand that? That's pre-alpha. I know. And again, there's the grifters community. They are always going to grift, so they were trying to downplay what we saw. Folks, go watch it. Go watch it on YouTube where you can get it running in 4K. Your eyeballs are going to fall out your head. It was amazing. But I do want to really kind of just bring this back around to One Bad Mother regarding the delay. And I know a lot of people. Look, we all kind of thought this, right? Like even when it was announced, we were like, wow, you start counting on your fingers how many games are coming out in the first half of the year. We know Xbox is going to be hitting in the second half of the year. You got Ninja Gaiden 4, right? You have a new Call of Duty. There are rumors and thoughts and theories to why this delay opens the door for Gears of War E-Day. We'll see if that happens. There's a couple, Clockwork Revolution could be one of those other games that quietly just get announced. Hey, here, the June showcase. Here's gameplay. Oh, by the way, it's coming out in September. And it blows everybody's mind, right? So there's a lot going on that we don't know about second half of 2025. So this delay gets announced. And I'm going to be honest with you. Most of the circles that I run in were unbelievably unfazed by this. Most people thought this was going to happen, but when Craig Duncan comes out and says, listen, we want to give the team wants more time. And all I have to do is equate that statement to what happened with Avowed. Do you remember the first time we saw Avowed? They showed it off, how stiff the combat looked, how like none of the hits felt like they had oomph to any of the stuff they were doing. They get that delay. They allow the studio to cook. You get a 30, you get a 60, and you get an optimized 40 with all the bells and whistles if you have a TV that does 120 hertz like I do. So you get the best of both worlds. You get frames, you get ray tracing, you get VRR, and you have a game that could be at the end of the year in the conversation for game of the year. I say let them cook. And again, we don't know how much cooking they're going to do because there was no official release month. Was this September or December? But if they do follow suit, and it was going to happen to fall in that November-December realm, and they give them that delay, maybe we get Fable in the same time frame of what we got Avowed. What are your thoughts on the delay, man?
Yeah, well, when it comes to delays, I don't think I've flinched one time this generation for any game I've been looking forward to when they've been announced for delays. I supported it with Halo. I wish Halo had a longer delay. I supported it with Starfield, supported it with Avowed. Generally, this generation, they got off to a slow start when it comes to developers and their tools and things like that. We know the pandemic, like that's in the rear view mirror, like to most of us in terms of our thoughts, but really a lot of the things that are coming out the next couple years were impacted at some point in time because of that, right? Everything from, hiring new people to motion capture, things like that. And so one of the things that we're starting to see over the last just very recent past here this last year is some tools across the board are starting to mature a bit more. Unreal Engine 5 is just now coming into it. I know they're not using that. I know they're using something else, but as an example, somebody who I know who develops on Unreal, has been doing that for a couple of decades, was telling me that it's really only been like super recently they finally got the stuff that they were promised back in 2020, when it comes to some of the things that it's supposed to be able to do. So you got to think about some of that stuff. And we know that they went back and forth on engines. They're taking Forza Tech into a different direction. And so whenever you're doing something like you're reimagining a brand new IP, you're really trying to evolve the technology, the engine it's going to be running on. You're trying new things. It's an ambitious game. It's just one of those things where take all the time in the world. I honestly don't care whether this comes out in February or next December. At this point in time, I get like in 2002 when they delayed Starfield, that felt a little bit different for a lot of people because they didn't have a lot. But these days, there's I don't know how you even find time these days. Like I don't know about everybody else in the chat. I actually look forward to delays because it's like, at least I don't have to skip something else that I'm really looking forward to. If you're on Game Pass alone, we already seen what it's been in the last few months, and then you got Doom and South of Midnight and Ninja Gaiden and probably an Oblivion remake and probably a few things we don't know about. Like there's just so much in the pipeline, and that's not including the third party and the fact that GTA might be out this year. So I know some of the conversation is around well, why has it been delayed? For me, it doesn't even matter. The fact that it is delayed is going to help it gain some polish. It's going to allow the developers to refine things. And yeah, every time we did see about, and they were giving us real time sort of glimpses into where that game was, it felt like it was improving. And something that that I've heard is that, like with Microsoft, a lot of their studios have finally started to learn how to collaborate more in terms of supporting each other and things like that. So this, that's a more recent type of, that's a more recent development, because initially they're all kind of scuffling, right? They're all trying to let the dust settle and figure out how to get the train back on track. But now that they do got things rolling, a lot of these studios are able to kind of jump in there and help out. They share tech. So I feel like anytime something is like pushed back a year, it's just going to be technically better in a lot of different ways.
Yep.
And something like Fable, this is one of the few like IPs that could become a massive pillar, right? There's not there's not a whole lot of, and this is across the industry. I'm not even just talking about like Microsoft publishing. Across the entire industry, if you talk about AAA IPs, there's not that many games that are super ambitious, that are not just iterative sequels
Yes.
this generation. And the launching an IP that's been dormant for a long time, that's basically reimagined, is a huge risk. It's a huge financial risk. And these are the types of things that really got to hit big if you want to see another one, right? And there's just and also I would say that if any massive IP, and it doesn't matter if it's by Microsoft, Sony, EA, Take-Two, if any big IP comes out, especially if it's new or reimagined, comes out and it hits, it kind of lifts all boats, right? It does re-energize the industry. And so I again, across the board, I don't care which IP it is. If it's if it's something like this has an opportunity to make a splash, and it can go in either direction. It can either lift all boats, or it can tell every investor, shoot, we shouldn't be doing things like that anymore, right? So I think it's too big to miss, and so delaying it, making sure you have a good runway outside of GTA. And I know that this is probably not just for that; it's for other technical reasons. But even with that in mind, like just giving it the proper runway, finding the proper launch window, making sure you got all your I's dotted and T's crossed, and that this is just ready. It's the best that it's going to be, I think is really vital for them. And if it did miss, the flip side of that could be pretty bad across the board for their studios and for even outside of that. So yeah, long story short, this is I'm cool with the delay, and I'm not going to be wanting the end of this year. In fact, it's a relief, and especially if GTA ends up coming out this year, I think we're going to have more than enough to eat, at the buffet, that we can afford to see this get some more time.
Listen, I agree. I know there's a lot of talk going back and forth about GTA, whether it's going to launch, whether it's November, December. Is it going to make the Game Awards? Is it even going to make 2025? The only people that know that are Rockstar. Now, we had heard a couple of months ago that they missed a couple of deadlines. It is Rockstar. They have been working on this game for, I want to say, about a decade. It's been that long. You got to remember, Grand Theft Auto 5 came out in 2013. And people are still buying it, and we're in 2025. So there you go. But I put it this way: it doesn't matter what game. You don't want to be in that behemoth's way. You just don't. Nope. Whether you're a new IP, an old IP, a storied, beloved IP, everybody wants to get the F out of the way of the behemoth. And you know what? We'll see what happens. Again, you can take it at my word, or you can't. I have heard, folks, from two different sources that the delay itself has absolutely nothing to do with a PlayStation 5 port. I know that there is a grifting community with a certain amount of grifters that are content creators that on this show remain nameless, that will lead you to believe that in fact is the case. I'm here to tell you from two sources that I trust, that is not the case. I don't even know if this is, I can't say whether it's going to be day and date on PlayStation 5 and Xbox, but that is not why this delay happened. This delay happened to give the team more time. They want to do some things, and again, just let them cook. This is their first big RPG. It's their first big game that's not a Forza Horizon, which potentially could come out next year, right? That we're all expecting some sort of announcement this June for Forza Horizon 6 in Japan, which is where I really wanted to go. But again, whether you believe me or you don't, I heard from two sources in the last 24 hours that a delay for PlayStation 5 dev time is not what it's about. So take that to the bank. Keasante, let's bring you in and let's talk the delay, because you and I are both of the same mind where we come to a point where we've seen games get delayed because they are in turmoil. There are struggles at the studio, whether that be with personnel, leadership, decisions being made from the top or the bottom, engines being changed. That's not what is happening here. They are on track. The graphics and what we saw in regards to gameplay prove as such. This is going to be a couple of months delay out of 2025, which could have been September, October, November, or December, into what could be, and again, this is a big hypothetical, first quarter of 2026. And if it is 3 or 4 months or even 5 months, that allows the team to really dig their heels into the ground and deliver what could be one of the best releases in Xbox history. Let's get your thoughts on it, man.
So for me, that whole delayed game adage is applicable here, right? So
Yep.
Yeah, we're not even gonna spend too much time on that. If it released when they expected it to release and it looks bad, or it's buggy or something like that, you'll never be able to hear it ever again, right? You'll never hear the end of it. That'll basically tar and feather it. That'll stain its image for the life of the game. Even if it eventually becomes great, people will always remember it, that negative initial take. So I when it comes to that, I'm 100% behind you on that. Like, delay the game, behind both of you. Delay the game, let the game come out when they are ready to release it. Honestly, and I don't think this is what's happening. Let me be clear. I don't think like you, Boom. I know, like I can, we talk to people. It's not being delayed because of PlayStation. That's not why. But that's neither here nor there. I wish this game was complete, 100% complete, and that the delay was strategic, just to have it on the shelf for when they need it, because they need to get to that level of shrewd strategic move making anyway, right? So whether it's because it needs to get out of the way of some other banger, or it's because the team needs more time, when it comes out, when it's in your face, it will hit you the best way they possibly want it to, right? And until then, the reason why I'm okay with it is because, as you guys have already pointed out, they are like firing on all cylinders as of right now, right? We don't have enough time in the damn day for all of the potential games that are coming out. Will you believe me when I tell you that I have not finished? I played, but I have not finished Indiana Jones yet, because Avowed has taken my time away.
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying? Like we don't need them all to combine on top of each other right now, because it's just too much. The backlog grows and becomes even more murderous. It's ridiculous, right? So as long as you're one of us, and it's all about being above board and about having your games and enjoying your games when they're released, there's nothing to be concerned about, right? And those with the false narratives about, they're doing this or they're doing that, or they're doing it because of X reason or Y reason, all that is just to fill dead air, because they have no games, and maybe they should be picking up a controller of their choice and playing some games, and is not happening right now. So they're trying to fill some dead air. But those of us that have known for time and memoriam, you always wait until the game releases. You never want that game to release until it's ready, because if it does release before it's ready, you get your cyberpunks, right? You get your great game that gets tarnished by a bad initial launch, and you never want that to be the case, right? And of course, based on what you've seen, what we've all seen, Boom, this game is shaping up to be quite something when it comes out. So even if that is 2028, I don't care. I will wait. When it comes out, I will see it with my own two eyes, and I'll be happy to have seen it, and it'll be the vision that they have envisioned. So I don't think this is a problem at all.